turn this into an MP3 and then put it in the podcast. So it's super easy. All right. Okay, I'm going to start. All right, everybody, to preview I'm starting again. Ugh. All right, everybody, to preview Chicago WTS, we have Matt Chariot with us. Matt was an alternate for the 2012 Olympic team. He has 2 World Cup wins, 5 podiums, and 2 WTS top 5 finishes. And the last couple years, he's been focusing on non-draft events, and he finished second at Ironman Cozumel, second in Panama in 2014. This year, he's had 3 second places at New Orleans, Raleigh, and Racine, and he won St. Croix. And you're getting ready for Chattanooga, right, Matt? Oh, shit. Ah.
Whoops.
I did that the other day, dude. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
I was like closing everything out and then like I just hit the wrong tab. Okay, I'll start over. It's no big deal. It's easy. Okay. Hey, everybody. We've got Matt Chariot here to help us preview Chicago WTS. He is a former ITU racer. He was the alternate on the 2012 Olympic team, 2 World Cup wins, 5 podiums, and 2 WTS top 5 finishes. Last couple of years, he's been focusing on non-draft events. He was second at Ironman Cozumel in 2014, second at Panama 70.3. And this year, he's had 3 second place finishes at New Orleans, Raleigh, and Racine, and he won St. Croix 70.3. And you're getting ready for Chattanooga, right, Matt?
Oh, that's correct. Just counting down the days.
Yep, another Ironman week is almost upon you. Are you excited for the 116-mile ride versus 112?
Yeah, I've been loading up a lot of extra bike miles the past few weeks, actually the past few months, just to get ready for it.
All right. So you're aiming for the win there, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. It should be hot and hilly enough that it should play into my favor.
And how about the swim? I remember last year there was a bit of a current, but they're saying there's less of a current this year.
Yeah, so there was also a 70.3 there in the springtime. And if you look up the results, they kind of match up with, I would say, normal swim times. So the guys coming out of the water in 23, 24 minutes. Whereas last year at Chattanooga, I guess they opened up the dam and those guys swam like 37, 38 minutes. So as of right now, fingers crossed that they don't mess with the water and we get a normal swim. But I'm kind of mentally prepared that we just have a freakishly fast swim and it becomes a disadvantage to me with my IT background. So either way, it'll come down to the run because the run course will be like real hilly and hard.
Yeah, that's what they have a athlete racing and done some and the run course is legit. So I mean that's good because it makes it hard for everyone, and you know a strong athlete's going to win on the day.
Exactly.
So speaking of strong athletes, let's talk about WTS Chicago. I think since the week's on Friday, let's talk about them first. So we have kind of 3 U.S. women with Gwen, Sarah, and Katie. How do you feel? Let's just start talking about those 3, and then I'm sure as we talk, other people will filter in who's on the podium. How do you think those 3 are going to fare? Like, do you think anyone can, you know, kind of topple Gwen?
No. No. Gwen, triathlon's going through the phase right now that it's Gwen against the field, just like in golf. 10, 15 years ago, it was Tiger Woods against the field, and usually Tiger Woods won. So um, Gwen is kind of in her Tiger Woods moment of her career.
Yeah.
So I mean, if someone does beat her, um, I'd be surprised. Gwen would probably have a really good reason, but at this point, I mean, she wins by such an incredible margin of victory. I mean, she won by like over a minute in a sprint race, like in Abu Dhabi. Like it's crazy. So she could easily win these races by how much did she win last year? By like at least a minute.
Yeah, at least a minute. And I mean, in Abu Dhabi, I remember watching, she didn't even come off the bike she was a little bit behind the main pack and ran
Yeah,
through the field.
yeah. I think Flora Duffy was off the front, and Gwen ran everyone down. And like, it doesn't even matter what bike pack she's in; she's always a contender. And if she's up there on the bike, then by the time she puts her running shoes on, I mean, she's gone. Um,
Yeah.
and each passing day, Gwen gets smarter, and she has better tactical skills not only on the bike but the swim. She's consistently front pack swimmer now, as well as being like top 10 out of the water. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of hard to bet against Gwen. Um,
And especially, that swim's going to be wetsuit legal. So that kind of keeps everybody a little bit closer together as well. I mean, so you're going to have someone like Flora Duffy, who's probably going to be in the front pack. Can she do you think she'll try to string it out a little bit? I mean, she's pretty good. We were talking earlier, there's 9 laps, and I think 5 180-degree turns each lap. So is Flora Duffy someone who could maybe string it out a little bit, or at least hurt people's legs with kind of making them have to accelerate, out of all these turns?
yeah, possibly. Like I don't know how wide these corners are, or these 180s. If the 180s are real narrow, then you're not going to be able to carry any speed through them. But if they're real wide on like a 4-lane street, you can carry some speed, and it's not going to sting as much
Right.
coming back up to speed. But yeah, I mean, uh, 45 180s on the bike. I mean, you're sprinting 45 times, and then you pretty much go back to like I wouldn't say zone two, but almost like an Ironman pace effort
Right. Like, do
in
you think people
between.
are going to have like the impetus to want to break things up? There's, quite a few countries are having Olympic selection. People like Non Stanford, Vicky Holland need to be podium to seal their slot. Do you think that that's going to play an effect, or is everyone going to try to save as much energy as they can for the run?
Um, yeah, so like the grand final is a lot different than and even Rio. The this grand final is closely related to Rio, and it's also closely related to Beijing in 2011 and London Test event in 2011, where a lot is on the line, but instead of going for the Olympics, you're racing for gold, and second, you race for a medal, and
Right.
then there are the contenders that finish in the top 10 that are going for those medals, and then the other athletes are there for the parade, especially once you get outside the top 20. So if this is the qualifier for a lot of the other countries, they'll have, podium finish, top 5 finish, top 8, top 10, top 15. I doubt many have automatic slots beyond top 15. So they race hard enough, and um, winning the race to them would be like, if you finish top 8 and you get eighth, then that's all you need. So there could be breakaways. Um, there might not be. it's really hard to get away on courses that have this many 180s. So I've tried it. It doesn't really, it doesn't work. Uh, a
Is
great
that because
example,
they can see you?
they could see you the whole time. And
Yeah.
uh, some of the races that I've had success breaking away at would be like Budapest in 2010 Grand Final. I was off the front for a long time by myself, and nobody bridged up to me. So eventually, I gave up and ended up having a really good run. I took 16th, but I was still disappointed. But Beijing, that course, there were no 180s except on the finish line, and it was such a long drag that the course was kind of a lollipop, and
Uh-huh.
no matter how much time that you got, you needed at least like 3 or 4 minutes on the bike to be out of sight, out of mind. So Chicago is it's going to be impossible to break away because they could see exactly how close you are, um, and there's not enough hills like the course in Rio to really put everyone to the test. So um, yeah, I think this race will just come down to a running race. There'll probably be maybe uh, one large group. Uh, Flora might take a flyer off the front with
Uh-huh.
another athlete. Um,
Like, who do you think? Like, maybe Helen Jenkins hasn't been racing as well. I mean, could it be someone like Vicky Holland or Jody Stimson, maybe?
um, no, Jody will play it safe. Jody's not going to do anything crazy.
Okay.
Um,
What
Jody's
about like, Sarah True, maybe?
no, uh,
No.
like no, I doubt that. If anything, there could be a couple of athletes going off the front from a little break in the swim. So,
Okay.
yeah, Flora Duffy has a decent swim, and there's like a 10-second gap, and she comes out of the water with,
Moffat? Moffat's a good worker.
yeah, maybe, but like Helen Jenkins, I think is strong enough, but it would come down to like if she's strong enough in the swim.
Right.
So, um, I
Maybe she's
think,
got Kirsten Sweetland.
uh, yeah, Kirsten, possibly. I'm not sure if she's strong enough on the bike, but who knows? She could prove us all wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if there's anybody that's, I mean, obviously they'll be working with Flora Duffy, but I
Yeah.
think
So
she's
like,
kind of the
so
best.
Annie Haig is the best on the bike.
Hmm.
She's not a good swimmer. So um, Annie Haug will probably come out of the water like 45 seconds down on a decent day, maybe over a minute down on a bad day, and on a great day, like 30 seconds down from the lead swimmer. So she's always had to kind of bridge up, and she's always done well in in races that had like real hard bikes. So like Kitzbühel WTS a few years ago, Auckland is a hillier course.
Hmm.
She's won Auckland a couple times. So she needs a difficult course, not just a course that's quote technical with an overabundance of 180s.
Hmm. There's also a run from the swim to the bikes. Like they have to run across Lakeshore Drive and then to transition. So there could be kind of some changes around there. If someone's a little bit off the back, they might be able to kind of get back onto
Yeah,
whatever group
yeah.
they're
You
in.
can bridge up. You can bridge up in a long transition. Everyone has wobbly legs coming out. So yeah, some of the Aussie girls could sprint pretty good through there. Definitely are Americans. If they're back a few seconds. I mean, whenever you exit the water and you're coming into T1, you always want to try and pass at least two athletes. The longer the transition, the more people you would want to try and pass. So if T1's going to take roughly 45 seconds long, you want to try and pass like 2 or 3. Whereas if you're exiting the water right next to the bikes, then try and go around 1. But if transition is extra long and it takes over a minute and a half, then yeah, you want to pass as many people as you possibly can. That way you kind of buy yourself insurance. If there is a split, you're slightly ahead of it, or you're close enough to the split where you could easily bridge up and be part of that breakaway.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it. I like that. So someone like Katie Zaferis, I mean, do you see her as someone who could get on the podium? I mean, she's second overall right now, and it's pretty hard for people to move up on her unless she has, you know, a race where she's kind of not in the top 8. Gwen, when you look at that little simulator thing, I mean, if she gets anywhere above 5th, she's going to win the overall. So is Katie someone who's probably going to be able to hang on to second in the overall rankings? You know, with a high enough finish?
Yeah, I imagine. I mean, Gwen's won every race she's done this year. 5 races, 800 points a race. She has 4,000 points. Katie has a bunch of second places with 3,700 points. I mean, it's 1,200 for the win, and it kind of has a steep drop off after that, and then kind of rolls down. So, yeah, Katie could have a leapfrog. I doubt it. I hope not. Katie's had such a great year. If anything, maybe she leapfrogs Gwen. You know?
Yeah, and you know, I mean, that would take like you said. I mean, Gwen is, you know, if Gwen's off the bike, like anywhere in you know, in the realm of
No man's land.
like, yeah, I mean, she'll win, right? But would Gwen, so people were saying Javier did this last year so to make sure Mola was on the podium, like would Gwen slow down or just to guarantee a US sweep so of the rankings?
It depends. Like, who knows? There could have been a big incentive for Spain to go 1-2 last year.
Uh-huh.
So, you know, if the bonus for Javier, we'll just say, is 50,000 euros, and Mola to get second, we'll just say is 30,000 euros.
Uh-huh.
What if they each got 60,000 for a 1-2? You know,
Right.
yeah. That I mean, I'm just making up stuff, but
That's like
um,
conjecture, yeah.
you know,
Is-
like I don't know if USAT is doing anything like that, but otherwise it would be Javier acting out of kindness because him and Molly are great friends, you know.
right.
But yeah, who knows? I mean, Gwen loves to win. Um,
That's my thought on that.
Katie is really craving for a win.
Hmm.
As far as how close they are, as far as like teammates goes, who knows? They're close, but I don't know if they're that close, you know?
Yeah, and closeness, like once you're on the race course, that kind of is like you leave that alone for a couple hours, like we're racing, you know?
Yeah, yeah. You're fake friends and then you race and then you go back to being fake friends. But really you're friends, you know? Like,
Right. But I mean, these are competitive women, and I think Gwen wants to win. Like, I mean, she's been winning everything. Like, why not continue? I
oh
mean,
yeah, big time.
she's my pick for the podium. I mean, who are your podium picks? Let's end the women's critique with podium picks. What do you think? How you think it's going to go down?
Uh I would like to see a US sweep. But are you talking about for the race or the grand final rankings?
Let's go for the race.
You know, I'd like to see a sweep, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's just one or two of the US women on the podium. Um, if there's 2 US women on the podium, I would go with Gwen and Katie. Uh, but you know, you also can't rule out you can't rule out like I don't know if she's injured or not, but Andrea Hewitt could easily
Yeah.
be on the podium. She's had some great grand finals in the past. Um, I wouldn't rule out Emma Moffitt as well, mainly because she's a championship level athlete. She's won the grand final in the past. Am I right? 2009.
Yeah, I think so.
Um,
Yeah.
2009 world champion.
Bronze medal in
Uh,
2008.
yeah, at the Olympics. And,
Yep.
um, she could be a contender or her biggest years could be behind her. You never know. Um, I would definitely not rule out Lindsay Dardanic. Um, she's racing, isn't she? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. She hasn't had, I don't think, the year that she was looking to have.
Yeah.
Rio didn't go to plan, so maybe this is one that she did well, I think, in Chicago last year. Um,
Yep.
so, I mean, you gotta look at that. I think I think the British women are pretty good. Like Nan had an off day in Edmonton, but I think that was because of the cold and the
Right.
dynamics of the swim. But I think her and Vicky Holland, like if they're on, they're kind of scary good. Um,
Yeah.
and I think besides Gwen, they're probably some of the stronger runners.
Yeah. And I see, is Lucy Hall racing?
Yeah, I believe so. She's someone, on the swim who could kind of string it out. Let me look.
Yeah.
No,
So,
she's actually not on the list.
okay. Yeah. I mean, she was ranked this year, so I figured she might be, but I mean, like, the UK has this girl named India Lee,
She's
so
on there.
I
Yeah.
imagine she could be some sort of domestique, maybe for one of the top athletes for Great Britain. I don't know what kind of results she's had in the past, but if she's a gun swimmer, um, she could easily be working for Great Britain.
Yeah, she was 26 in Stockholm,
Mm.
and 49th in Rio.
Mm. Yeah,
So, but
maybe I'm wrong.
yeah, but I feel like I've seen her name on the swim.
Yeah.
So she could
Okay.
be. And the British athletes often have good swimmers. So,
Yeah.
all right. So let's talk about the men's race. So it's kind of Gomez, Mola, and Louis, um, kind of battling for those top three slots. And the it seems to be the race is between Louis and Mola, kind of, unless Gomez has a really off day for second and third. Um,
Right.
so if Louis finishes kind of far enough in front of Mola, Louis could take over that second slot. How do you see, like, with this type of Mola's not a front pack swimmer. Do you think on the men's side, this race is all going to come back together on the bike? Or do you think there'll be a group that stays away, perhaps driven by Johnny Brownlee, who's just coming off injury?
Uh, yeah, that's a good question. Like, there could be a late breakaway. Most of the early breakaways in the races get reeled in pretty quickly, especially with the amount of 180s. There'd have to be a significant gap out of the water
Yeah.
for anything to stick. Um, I mean, the difference between the breakaways nowadays versus the breakaways 3 or 4 years ago, even the breakaways that were like 10 years ago, is that everybody knows each other in the breakaway. Um, so if the Russians are in the breakaway with Gomez and Vincent Louis and Aaron Royal and some every now and then Ryan Bailey gets up there, Henry Schumann,
Right. Yeah. Schumann.
Richard Varga's always up there. Richard Varga trains with the Brownlees. He's gone on a lot of training camps with them, and I think that's part of the reason how Varga developed his run and cycling skills is just training with the Brownlees. Um, So you got this core group of like a dozen guys, and they all know each other, so they all start to work together. And the Russians
Hmm.
know that they sit at the back, and every now and then the Brownlees will go yell at the Russians, tell them to pull through, but they don't. Um, the Russians will get killed in these 180s because they're not as technically as strong, and they're always kind of yo-yoing off the back, particularly in these front groups of like 10 guys. So yeah, there could be a breakaway. There might not be. I would say it's like a 50-50 chance of there being a breakaway of a dozen guys. Only because like history shows the past few years that, like I said, when there's a dozen guys up there, they all know each other. They all know to work with each other. So like they want to get some time on like Gomez, and if the Brownlees are in there, they want to get time on Mario Mola and Richard Murray, Fernando Larsa,
Right.
um, some of those top runners. Um, so they start to work together. And like last year at the grand final, there's a small breakaway with Brownlee, but yeah, it is possible. But with the amount of 180s, it could just be a running race.
A big slow pack, kind of, not slow, but you know what I'm saying, like
Yeah.
just kind of.
It's slow, but it's pretty intense.
Right. Yeah. I mean, slow in that no one's like trying to stay away, I guess. I mean, I'm sure they ride hard, believe me. What do you think? So if Gomez is kind of in that front group of a dozen guys and Mola's back with Murray, do you think Gomez won't try to slow that group down, but will
Um,
he? I mean, he would probably want Mola as his friend. Like he wouldn't want Mola to get totally like killed and not have a chance for the podium in the
no, I
rankings. Do you
wouldn't go
think?
with that. I mean,
No,
even if there's like a 45-second gap, Mario Mola is going to run himself up.
you think he'll still run himself into the top 10 even if there's a 45-second gap?
Oh, I'll run himself in the top 5 easily. Richard Murray as
Especially
well.
with a flat course, he can just really get his legs turning over.
Oh yeah, big time. As long as he's healthy, you know.
Right, right. Which we'll never know because everybody, leading up to a race, everybody's, oh, I've had my greatest training ever. I'm so fit.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
you
Exactly.
know, the same old. So let's talk about kind of the US guys. So this is a selection race. If they don't finish in the top 8, it's kind of like, points type thing. Do you think Hunter Kemper can kind of remake that magic that happened in 2012? Does he have any shot at the top 8?
I'd say in a course standpoint, Hunter's biggest weakness is a massive amount of 180s. Um, so like the older you get, the more those 180s really sting your legs.
Yeah.
The bike and the run. I mean, towards the end of the run, the last lap and a half, those 180s kind of bite your ankles and the sides of your foot from going around those cones all the time. Um, so yeah, maybe he's got a shot. He could be
I
a
mean,
contender.
I guess it just depends on if the race comes back together because from what we've seen so far, his swim hasn't been front group at all.
No, because traditionally Hunter's been a front pack swimmer. Like I trained with him in Colorado Springs for I guess 4 or 5 years, and we had a great swim group. He swam really well. We were training with Mike Doan, which is also Andy Potts' coach. He's a
Yep.
great swim coach. I don't know who he's swimming with now, but I mean, like overall, the U.S. men aren't swimming too well. Ben Canute will have a good swim every now and then, but I mean, Joe Malloy and Greg Billington are easily front pack swimmers. They're just not performing in the water on a level I'd like to see him. And Hunter's just racing like an old man, and I'd like to see him. I'd like to see him race like a like he was 10 years ago,
Yeah. I mean, maybe, for one race he can kind of find it, and do what he did in San Diego. Because I unless he gets the automatic slot, I don't think he'll make the Olympic team.
I think that's his goal last time was an automatic slot, and he nailed it. Um, yeah, it would be interesting to see if he could pull it off.
Yeah. I think it'll definitely be tough. I mean, especially like you're talking about those 180s on the run. I mean, you just have to get back up to speed as well over and over and over again. And, by 8Ks on the run, you're pretty
It
dang
hurts.
tired.
It hurts everybody, but I think it hurts the older athletes more. I mean, it hurts
Yeah.
me. It hurts me when I go around 180s, but um, I'm not racing ITU anymore, so
Yeah. And I mean, someone like Vincent Louis, he's young, he's strong. Like he'll just, they won't hurt him as badly as others. I mean,
yeah. Especially if you train for them, if you spend
yeah,
time in the weight room and you're out there running around cones and uh, instead of going to the track or doing a hard work on a treadmill, you drop a cone at 400 meters and you do your 800-meter reps, going around to 180 all the time. Um, yeah, it makes a difference, especially when that fatigue sets in late in the 10K.
so you used to do workouts like that?
Oh yeah, big time.
Okay.
Um, I would hurt so bad after these workouts. Like my ankles would hurt. Like my whole body would hurt. Like it hurts on the track, but it also hurts in these workouts. Like if you think about it, all of these 180s on the 180s on the bike, they're all the same. But
Yeah.
180s on the run, every 180 is a right hand turn. Am I right? There's like three or four 180s.
Yeah.
I've never done an ITU race with more than two 180s per lap. No, maybe yeah, probably no more than 10 over the course of 10K. And um, this is the most I've ever seen. So this course just beats you up. Just looking at the results last year, the run times weren't super fast because you were stopping to go around these cones just all the time. And yeah, just preparing for these races just takes a toll.
Yeah, especially this is the last one of the year. They've been traveling all around the world, and every race course is different. So you kind of have to do some specific stuff leading up to each race. It's all very intense. Makes me
Yeah,
tired.
mostly different. Kitzbühel 2013 was the most different it's ever been, where we swam 750, biked. Um, I think the bike was only like 15 kilometers, but 8 of it was straight up the side of a mountain, and then the run was the steepest, hardest run the ITs had in this generation. I don't know what it was like in the 90s, but that course is very unique. Most of the courses, hilly, sometimes there's a bit of a climb, most of the time flat, a lot of 180s, uh, kind of in a city setting. They're kind of similar, so you know what to expect. Um, so,
Yeah. Chicago's interesting though, because it is, I mean, when you look at the map, and I lived in Chicago, so I know exactly the area around Buckingham Fountain. Like it's a small area, and the turns on the bike will be wider because they're 4-lane roads. So you can whip around those a little better. It's not like turning on a 1-lane road.
right.
So that'll be good. But I mean, it's definitely just a very small area, just up, back, out, around the whole thing. So,
That's another thing. I was talking to Tommy Zafaris this morning. I sent him a text message and said, good luck in the aquathlon.
yeah,
And he texts back to me. He's like, I barely got a warm up in because it took me uh, a long time to cross the street. Uh,
yeah,
he was waiting for like 5 or 6 minutes just across the street. It sounded like just logistically, this race is very difficult to get to. And with the amount of spectators on Friday and is it Friday and Sunday or Friday and Saturday?
It's
Um,
Friday and Saturday.
yeah,
Friday during rush hour.
yeah. So, and there's going to be tons of spectators. Like the city of Chicago and all the age groupers are going to come out and see it. So the athletes really have to prepare logistically, like how to get to the race. And if they mistime it, they're going to be rushing to set their shoes up and their bike, and um, it'll be difficult for those guys that are used to showing up last minute.
Yeah, for sure. How do you think Jonathan Brownlee, will do? He's coming off that femoral stress fracture. Do you think he's going to not have a great run, not have that strength and speed?
Yeah, so that's a tough call. I mean, I always thought the Brownlees were always on the verge of an injury at some point during the season. So either he's ready to go and he's going to win it, or he's just going
Mhm.
to jog through it and maybe get like 10th place. Um, I mean, a femoral stress fracture with the amount of 180s, and pretty sure most of this run course is on concrete.
Yep.
Um, it's going to hurt a lot. The the old Des Moines course, the old Des Moines World Cup was all on concrete, and I was always the most sore after that race. So yeah, the fatigue will be a huge factor for Jonathan
Yeah.
if he could manage it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure he'll be aggressive on the swim and the bike. I'm just, you kind of saw Alistair in Rio, and he was aggressive at the beginning. And then, you could just tell his run wasn't there. He was back on his heels and just kind of faded. So I'm hoping that, Jonathan is
Yeah,
healthy, but
Rio was warm. You know,
yeah,
um, Brownlees are cold weather athletes. Most of their success has come in just cooler climates. Uh, I mean, like, yeah, they had good races. Didn't they have a good race in Abu Dhabi? That
Jonathan
sprint.
was there. I think Alistair was not. He didn't.
Yeah,
Alistair didn't race until Cape Town this year.
that's right. Yeah, Cape Town was a little bit more mild.
Hmm.
Edmonton would have been perfect for him.
Oh gosh, that looked
Um,
awful.
I mean, that was just Brownlee weather, and like you look at the results from Edmonton, and that was a tough man's race. You know, like Richard Murray and Javier Gomez, those guys are tough and gritty, and they're just made for uh, hard conditions. And I mean, they could stick it out through anything. Those two, but
Yeah.
the Brownlees thrive in the cold and the rain. So if Chicago's a little bit on the warm side, like I don't know how Jonathan races in intense heat, especially over the course of an Olympic distance race, or what they're calling the standard distance race. Um, Alistair, I know, struggled a little bit more. Uh, so yeah, if it's a little cooler, then Brownlee could definitely be a factor. But if it's uncharacteristically warm that day, like in the 80s, upper 80s, um, I don't think he'd be a factor.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be so for the women's race, it's supposed to be very windy, chance of thunderstorms and kind of humid in the 80s. And then those thunderstorms are going to come through. And the men's race is supposed to be partly sunny and then maybe 72 or so, and also a bit windy. And I know you've been in Chicago, you've raced there, but you know how the wind can come off those buildings and it
Yeah.
just swirls, and that might, I don't know if it'll break up the bike or not, but it could make it harder, if
No,
you're
no, it won't break up the bike because there's just so many loops in
yeah.
the 180s. It's not like there's a 5K stretch where the field will echelon into a gutter. You
Yeah.
know, like that's not going to happen.
Yeah, that'd be nice if they could run it on Lakeshore Drive or something and be able to do that, just kind of have a long drag, because
Yeah,
You
sort
might.
of. I mean, there's tons of better course options. Like if they could have developed something that the course looked more like a dumbbell, where there wasn't as many 180s. But I mean, part of the problem with the ITU is that they're fixed on the exact distances. So 1.5K swim, 40K bike, 10K run. What if it was like 41.2K, but the course was
Right.
perfect, without any
Right.
180s. So that was
Yeah.
always my
Yeah.
bone to pick with the ITU was the course design.
Really? Well, at least with Kitzbühel, they kind of went just how the train did it. It was like, okay, we're going to go up the mountain and then you're going to run up there. And by the way, dismount your bike where it's like 20% grade.
Yeah, that was epic. I mean, that was incredible.
Yeah. One of your favorite races?
Yeah, I mean, on the day I had a terrible day that year, but I mean, I've raced Kitzbühel like I think 5 times, and one of the times I wrote a blog post. The only time I really wrote anything for a blog, and I got a lot of good feedback from the athletes. The race director read the blog, and they were like, "Yeah, we should probably change this course one of these days." So in 2013, they changed the course, and they just instead of racing in the valley with scenic background and a scenic backdrop, we went into the mountains, and the race kind of unfolded the way everyone expected. There was a couple athletes that were surprise top 8 finishes, but Alistair won by a large amount, and it pretty much came down to whoever had the biggest VO2 max, which is Alistair. And that's how a lot of these races unfold. It's like whoever has the biggest injured wins. Um, they're somewhat predictable, I mean, with Kona coming up on the horizon,
Yeah.
everyone tries to pick the podium every year, and it's no one really comes close.
No, I mean, I think, we're going to do a show on Kona, but it's definitely a different, I think, a different beast when you factor in the heat and the nutrition and the eating, the eating and all that. I think
Yeah. And
people,
all the interviews are outside, and just being outside, even though you're in the shade, just takes so much out of you, and all your sponsors want you to do all this stuff. So you're doing a busy week, and unless you're like Mako where you love that, it kind of takes a toll on you.
yeah, exactly. So let's talk about the men's podium. Who do you think is going to finish on the podium
Yeah.
at Chicago
So I
for
mean,
the actual race, not the
yeah.
series?
Uh, if there's some sort of breakaway in effect, Jonathan Brownlee and Aaron Royal could be on the podium.
Yeah,
Uh,
Royal's been doing well.
yeah, Bugsy. I trained with him a few years ago, and
Bugsy is his name.
yeah, that's his nickname. And
Okay.
he um, he busted out on the scene a few like fall of 2012 and spring of 2013, and I was like, is this for real? And then he backed it up with all these consistent results. So he's the real deal. And he's one of those guys that train in Gwen's training group under Jamie Turner. And
Hmm.
at this point, especially with what Jamie Turner has done with Ryan Bailey, I think Jamie Turner is arguably the best triathlon coach in the world because he's taken some second pack swimmers and gotten them to move up to the front pack. So Ryan Bailey, perfect example. He was like middle of the pack, second pack, and he's now included in those breakaways every now and then. So Ryan Bailey could be a podium contender as long as there's a breakaway.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if João Pereira pulls something off from Portugal. Um,
Yeah, he was good in Stockholm, surprisingly. Like you thought he was going to fade, and then he just never did.
yeah, and I want to say he was on the podium last year in Chicago.
He might have.
So, yep. Um, he had a podium performance in London, and then followed it up with a podium performance last year in Chicago. So yeah, I think he could be a contender. A lot of times when you do well on a course, you come back the next year with a lot of confidence. So he could easily come back and at least be on the top five, worst case scenario. But yeah, it's hard to bet against Javier Gomez. I know he races all the time, but like Gomez is the greatest triathlete in our generation. I know Frodeno and Brownlee's in the conversation, but Gomez is the most consistent. So um, if Gomez is outside of the podium, that's like very unusual, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, if he gets, less than fifth, he could, lose his top spot in the overall ranking. So um, I just, he's just so consistent. I just, really bad things I feel like would have to happen for him to not be in the top five and probably
Yeah.
on the
And
podium.
that, I mean, I've been following Gomez's career since 2006. And once he busted out on the scene, especially like in 2007, he's the most consistent guy there is in the sport. So he'll be on the podium for sure.
Barring a
Yeah,
disaster.
yeah, but like he's always avoided them. You know,
Yeah.
he's always in the front on the bike. He does his fair share of work, and if the group comes together, he's kind of consistently in the top 15 or so. And then coming in the T2, he's always in that front row, maybe second row of guys. Brownlees are always on the front row. Vincent Lewis, Richard Murray's usually in that front row. Gomez is up there. Sven Riederer is always on the front row. Um,
Are they just pushy or do people let them by?
who?
The people who are in the front row, like, is there kind of a hierarchy there, or is it kind of like they
No,
know how
well,
to position themselves and that's where they're going to be?
uh, so some of the guys like Gomez, he'll just end up being on the front. Um, Sven Riederer, you know, 2004 bronze medalist, he could easily be. He's always up there, um, but nobody gives anyone space. I remember in London, I think either 2010 or 2011, Alistair Brownlee was just yelling to get to the front. He was like, "Hey, get the fuck out of the way! Move the." He was swearing like crazy, and like he spooked me a little bit, and um, I let him go by, but then I just kind of hopped on his wheel and kind of elbowed my way into that front row. But like the difference between the front row and the last couple guys is usually like 10 seconds by the time you're exiting transition. So, you know, the difference between dropping and opening K could easily be like 245 versus uh, like 235.
Right. So it's important. Like you
Oh, big
need to be,
time.
you got to be
Yeah.
positioned correctly. That's
Yeah.
probably why Alistair probably thought, okay, I can scare the shit out of some of these people and they'll move for me, you know?
Yeah, but then it's Alistair. He takes his opening K out in 240 every time, no matter what, when he's
Okay.
on. And him, the only guys that can go with him are him, Gomez, and his brother. Uh, and that's like if Mario Mola and Richard Murray have a good T2 and they're on that front row, they could go with them, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah. And then, I mean, it's hard to even make up 20 seconds is tough. On,
Yeah.
that's a huge effort when you're running that fast.
Yeah.
Like for someone like me, it's like easy to, because I'm running so much slower, but once you're running that fast,
No,
running that much
it's
faster,
cutthroat. It is cutthroat.
right?
If you want to be on that front line, it is cutthroat. Um, like I was getting on Joe Malloy on this earlier in the year. I was like, get in that front line coming out of T2. Like, I don't care. Just harden the fuck up and be on that front row. And I'd send some messages to him after the race, but
Well, make sure you send some messages to him before the race so he remembers. Like, you kind of gotta, you gotta be an asshole, I guess, a little bit.
yeah, exactly. Or just go to the front and just ride as hard as you can the whole last lap, and then then you
Right.
could do it. But if it slows down and then it speeds up real quick, then it's going to be one big long row of 10 guys dismounting at the same time.
Right.
So
And
yeah, podium. I'll go Gomez, Mola, and Brownlee.
okay. So you think Vincent Louis is not going to be up there?
He'll get fourth.
Okay. And so then he'll keep his third and we'll have the same kind of rankings podium there. So, all right. Well, I think people got some good information, some inside type of analysis. So thank you very much, Matt. And
Yeah,
good
sure.
luck in Chattanooga.
Yeah, thanks, Emily.
All right.